Alright, guys, this lecture is titled Blood Bank Part 1. Um, Basically, my goals for this lecture is to go into basic ABO, and a lot of this is just going to be a quick reminder. If you've had anatomy and physiology, which I'm sure most of you have had, then you're already going to be familiar with a lot of this. I'll touch upon a few things you're probably unaware of, but we're not going to go too much in depth in that. This is just to be a general ABO overview. So when they first start going over ABO, they say there's A cells, there's B cells. They say A has the A antigen, B has the B antigen, and accordingly you have different reactions. And then of course there's O cells and there are AB, and they go over the different reactions. But what I want to make sure you understand is, why are these different reactions occurring? So let's start with an A individual. So if you have A cells, you have anti-B in your serum. What is anti-B? Anti-B is an IgM antibody, a pentamer, which those look something like this. They got 5 sides, hence the penta in the name. Again, my drawing is horrible, but yeah. You got these antibodies in your serum if you're A. Now, what if you are B? It's pretty much the same story, except you have anti-A in your serum, and it is also an IgM. What if you're an O cell? You have no antigen, but you have anti-A and you have anti-B in your serum. What if you are an AB cell? Well, at this point you have neither anti-A nor anti-B. You don't have any antibodies in your serum, and this is what makes you the universal receiver if you're AB. And I didn't mention it, but and most of you probably already know, you're the universal donor. Now, what used to confuse me back when I was first learning this in undergrad was I used to think, well, okay, I understand you have no antigen, and that's great, but you have anti-A and anti-B, so if you give somebody, O blood, doesn't the anti-A and anti-B cause a problem? Well, when you give blood, you can give whole blood, which is plasma and cells. The bottom part I'm coloring in here representing the cells. We'll just say serum. But that pretty much that barely happens anymore. Like when we talk about giving red cells, we really mean just packed red cells. So most blood transfusions are just packed cells, and they will give plasma and all that, but they do it separately, and they'll match it right accordingly. So when they talk about, we'll go back to this. When they talk about transfusing O cells, they mean mainly just O cells. So the anti and anti-B, that ain't there. It's just the cell. There's no antigen on it, so it ain't a problem. So let me go a little bit more in depth with these reactions, and I'll use a cell to demonstrate. So if you're an A cell, you got an A antigen, which I'll just draw like this. You have what we say anti-B in your serum. So let's say I give you B cells. If I transfuse B cells into you, and you've got the B antigen, the anti-B in your serum is going to attack this antigen, and it's going to basically cause these B cells to lyse, which means break apart and burst. And it's also going to cause them to be destroyed by the liver and spleen and all that as well. Which is going to be called extravascular hemolysis. You'll learn more about that later, especially in chemistry. But anyway, the point is, it's going to cause a bad transfusion reaction that you don't want. And this is going to happen with any conflict. You know, if you're a B cell, and you're given A, we'll just draw an arrow down here. You know, it's the same story. You have anti-A in your serum, as we said. The anti-A antibody is going to attack the antigen. So it's all about these antibodies within the blood of the recipient attacking the cells that are being transfused into them. That's the whole thing. And so that's kind of the very basic ABO and the general idea of what's going on in these basic ABO reactions. So in the next lecture, I'm going to basically go over what are the expected reactions that you would get, right? And what I mean by that is, you know, let's say you're doing ABO testing in the lab. When you do that, you have to basically type a person's blood. And so when you do that, you have like reagents and whatnot of known things. You have known anti-sera, known reagent cells. But the question is, what's the patient's blood? That's what you don't know, right? That's what you got to figure out. So whenever you run these reactions, meaning taking the patient's cells and mixing them with reagent anti-sera, or taking the patient's plasma and mixing it with reagent control cells, there are certain reactions that you would expect to happen. So I'm going to go over those and what the expectations are. And then in the lecture after that, we're going to go into unexpected reactions and certain problems you can run into and how to resolve them. So guys, that's going to wrap it up for ABO Part 1. Hopefully this will make more sense when we get to ABO Part 2.